The cube will now initiate.
Hello, everybody, established Curvists and new listeners alike. This is your host and producer of the Curve the Cube podcast, Jemmy Lagonier of Flintstone Media Podcast Network, welcoming you to episode 101 with this week's message of the importance of doing what you dream. People get taken off course in life, and everybody's story is different. It could be just getting caught up in a more predictable field with a more reliable paycheck. We all know that. Being told over and over again that your dream is stupid or that you'll never amount to accomplishing it. Or maybe there was a tragedy in your life that caused you to have to hyper-focus on taking care of yourself or a loved one, and over time, your dream got forgotten. Like I said, there can be so many reasons. But what I truly believe we all have in common is a true gift, talent, or passion for something that we must each pursue to truly be living an authentic life and experiencing our most honest pursuit of happiness. Maybe there is a book of stories living inside of you, just dying to get out. Or maybe you've always wanted to hit the stage and be in front of people singing or dancing or what have you, acting. Maybe it's a love of basketball or knitting, or juggling, or whatever. Or maybe you have an idea for business, but maybe you lack the confidence to get it started. Or have a dream to travel the world helping others, but you haven't quite figured what that should be yet. Maybe you just want your voice heard and have a great message, but you haven't quite figured out the platform yet. So there could be something we each really want to do and to go for, whether as a hobby, a part-time gig, or a full-time thing. Doing what you love is simply vital to one's spirit, and we can't allow ourselves to forget that. I mean, what's the alternative, really? Living day to day and just your normal humdrum? Losing your passion? Being on your deathbed full of regrets and always asking, what if? What if? What if? What if? I know that for me, I was fearing those regrets every day I walked into a corporate job for a career that no longer felt at all right for me. And I miss not spending really any part of my day doing something I love to do. Now, don't get me wrong, some people love their corporate job. So this is not me railing against corporations by any means. It's not about that. But for me, it wasn't happy being forced to have to every day conform my life to a direction that it probably was never meant to be in the first place. And since we only get one walk through this life on Earth, I mean, we shouldn't waste it, right? But we also need to keep in mind that not all dreams are created financially equal, and all come with a measurement of risk, right? I mean, especially if your goal is, like me, to make a living off of your dream and your dream alone, which isn't every Curvist goal, but if that is your goal, you have to think through balancing your need to pursue that dream and your need to keep a roof over your head, right? So, piece of advice. Be smart about severing ties. Don't burn your bridges because, first of all, it's unnecessary. And secondly, you never know how old connections can help you or hurt you in the future for what you're deciding to pursue now. For example, I was contacted a few months ago by a couple of guys I used to work with who are now pursuing their own venture and were looking for marketing and podcasting support. If when I left that job years ago that I knew them from and burned those bridges on the way out, well, that phone call would have never happened. So I'm so grateful to past Jemmy that even though that professional relationship was not meant to be back then, my departure did not leave a negative impression that overshadowed my accomplishments there. So past Jemmy kind of ended up giving present Jemmy an opportunity layup that would not have happened if I had scorched the earth. You want your future self to be very grateful to your present self when it becomes your past self. So please be very careful, both financially and relationships wise, not to hurt your future self. But so that is my PSA about being careful of pursuing your dreams, but it is so important to do just that. And here are some examples. I'll explain what pursuing my dream has meant in my life. So as far as opportunities, I mean, I've had some great opportunities come from my deciding to pursue my own dream with digital marketing, with podcasting. For example, I've been able to do some live tweeting for the news, which was really, really cool. I've been backstage at tons of events. I've been invited to present an award to a band that I love so much called Crush. They were on a past episode, so you got to look them up. Starts with a K, Crush. I got to present an award to them at a local festival, which was so awesome. And opportunities I've enjoyed coming about for my marketing company too, which has been really surprising and a really cool side effect of doing the podcasting thing and really pushing for this dream of mine to happen. I've also had the privilege of meeting some really cool people like Representative Lois Frankel and local bands and stars of film and television. But most importantly, I've really been touched by my guests. In the next episode that's coming up that I actually had the pleasure of recording yesterday, I talk with Eddie, who he's gone from being addicted to being amplified. So you got to look for his episode next week. But people who are like that, who've really touched my heart and soul, it's just been such a privilege of great side effect from pursuing my dream. I mean, honestly, since I've been deciding to do this and to go for it, the trajectory of my whole life has changed. Most importantly, though, I've allowed what really gives my life meaning to be able to happen in a super fun way by helping others achieve their goals. I mean, that is, after all, what spurred me to push so hard for the Save the KVJ Show campaign, which now seems like so long ago. I mean, helping others achieve their goals has been what did inspire me to start my marketing company a few years ago, and ultimately what inspired this podcast itself. I have a fairly unique opportunity to provide people with a platform to talk about their work and their own projects and giving them exposure to a whole new audience. And some of my guests, those for me, those for some, this is their first media experience by sitting down with me, and they get the opportunity to work out some interview nerves and kinks, which is fun, right? Or for others, like Sharif Al-Husseini, who is the president of a local Islamic center that was vandalized, for him to be able to come on the podcast and explain some truths about Islam and allay some fears. Or my friend Drew, who he shared his story of gender and transformation with my audience. Or Jeff DeMario, who helps kids who are aging out of foster care. I mean, to be able to give them the platform to share their stories with the world and to allay fears and misconceptions, it's just been truly an unforgettable honor. And honestly, something I didn't foresee when I started this thing. For me, I get the joy of experiencing someone else's happiness and sharing their story. My guests have really gifted me with some truly thought-provoking moments. And at the end, they've often said, after we wrap recording, that being on the podcast was very therapeutic for them. It's like for the first time, maybe, they have paused and stepped back to view their hard work and accomplishments and really considered how amazing their journey has been. And that moment right there, that smile, that light, that appreciation of their authentic self, that's everything. Seriously, it's like Christmas to me. It's been such a wonderful privilege. That's been a great opportunity, and that has come from by having the courage to pursue what I really love to do, which is this whole podcasting thing, right? But in pursuing your dream, whether podcasting or writing or music or starting a business, whatever it is, the truth is, and here's just a little bit of a reality check again, money doesn't come so easily, and you really need to plan as much as you can with what is within your control. The purpose of pursuing what you love is for that dream to ultimately lift you up and not sink you. So please be smart about it. And the other thing is be prepared. Listen closely here, folks. Be prepared to work really hard, especially for the time while you're pulling double duty between your quote-unquote job and the dream you're pursuing. That is, if you are working at making your passion more than just a casual hobby. For the hobbyists, curvists out there, you still have to work really hard if you want to have some success and get your stuff out there and everything. But the pursuit is really exceptionally hard, especially hard for the people who are pulling those double duties. And I spent a couple years doing that. I know it very much close, up close and personal, and it's tough. It is tough, but it's so worth it. I mean, I've had more late nights, more migraines, more cups of coffee than I could ever count. I've been exhausted to the point of being a zombie. I've had to learn to handle those necessary and mind-numbing tasks that come with having to do a lot of things for yourself that have nothing directly with doing what you dream, but all support the effort. You have to learn how to do all of that stuff, administrative junk that comes along with it, but it's definitely worth it. For me, one of the hardest parts, and to be honest, it's still very much a work in progress, has been the willingness to put myself out there. Yes, I've never been one to shy away from the camera exactly, but I've also rarely volunteered to be in front of one. If a fan of KBJ show, for example, wants to take a picture with me, I'll definitely take a picture, but I'm not, when I'm talking about my guests or a client, it's all about them, and that has always been my comfort zone. It's such an easy, natural thing to shine a big, huge, enthusiastic spotlight on what someone else is doing. But to purposely make myself the center of attention is something I'm just starting to get used to. But as having the podcast has really evolved and become its own engine and impacting my dream to the point of becoming my own Curve the Cube story, I've had to embrace that my story is also one that can and should be offered up to inspire others. So, Ethan, here I go, right? So with these solo episodes of Curve the Cube, I aim to work through topics and thought processes that directly impact those pursuits, and very much opening up about my own. It can be a scary, bumpy, and unpredictable roller coaster of a ride, but at the end of the day, I am so glad to have punched my ticket and gotten on. There not only may be, but will be times when you question everything. Why am I doing this? What are the chances I'll succeed? Nobody else believes in me, so why should I? Is it even worth it? Would it have been better if I'd never even tried? I can tell you unequivocally this: if you never try, you never succeed. And success is in the happiness gained from doing the thing itself, not in the accolades or the money from others, not in fame, not in fortune, but in finding that internal peace that finally comes from regularly doing what you truly love. So, with all that in mind, please subscribe on iTunes, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, or your other favorite podcast app to hear my inspiring conversations with my guests. They hail from all sorts of backgrounds and are pursuing all different kinds of dreams. But they also all have one very important thing in common: the audacity to do what they dream. So let them motivate you to think outside the box, curve your own cube, and do the same. It's like Jennifer McGrath said on a previous episode: you can't just exist. You gotta make a difference in somebody's life. That is what we were meant to do. So why don't you start, end quote, by the way. So why don't you start by making a difference in your own life? Pursue what you love to do. Pursue your dream and live your authentic self. Or as Tammy Stronach put it so eloquently on episode 100, and rewind to that, she is the childlike empress from The Neverending Story, and it was a great episode. But as she put it, quote, when you're not practicing those things that are really authentic to you, and you're just giving all of your time to these other things that are pulling you off of your path and the person that's aching to be you, then you have to fill the void with a lot of other junk food for the soul. End quote. And who wants to do that? This episode was sponsored by my friend Chris Blinston, who had a dream to be a great tattoo artist. And not only is he now great, he is legendary. He has a highly successful tattoo shop here in South Florida called Big Brain 2, No Hard Feelings, that I highly recommend, and not just because he's a sponsor, but because he and his artists are simply the best. Chris himself has won over 20 Best in Shows and was the runner-up on Season 6 of Spike TV's Ink Master. So he himself is an inspiration to all who want to pursue a dream. So luckily for you, I have captured his story back on episode 31. Yay! So after this, I recommend you all to rewind to his episode if you missed it. And if you're in the South Florida area and are looking to get a tattoo, I highly recommend you go see him and his staff. Visit bigbrain2.com for details. Mention the podcast when you go in and get 10% off. Sweet! Thank you to DJ John Hitta for the music beds as always. And please follow Curve the Cube all over the social interwebs. And with that, I will say this has been your host and producer, Jemmy Lagonier, and thanks so much for listening. Remember to find your passion and do your thing with the Curve the Cube podcast.
You have successfully curved the cube.